everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. Today's video is on the subject of practicing poppet magic. Poppet magic is a subject I've been probably studying now for about 10 years, and I've been looking into voodoo and hoodoo practices for about 15 years now. So poppet magic is one of my favourite elements of practicing hoodoo magic. It's something I've incorporated in my craft now for quite a long time. I have some examples of poppets that have been made that I will show you as well. Now, for those of you who don't know, poppets it's just one title that means voodoo doll. So all the titles that you might come across would be voodoo doll, hoodoo doll, spirit doll, poppet, fetch, effigy, or you might even get some calling it figural magic, because figural magic is literally something that looks humanish and represents a figure of a person, and of course a doll does that. Now, there are a lot of different opinions and thoughts and beliefs on this type of magic, and I've researched an awful lot over the years, but I have broke it down to a few books in my collection that I have really enjoyed reading and felt like you guys might enjoy them as well. So as always, I will score the book from 1 to 10, give you an idea as to the content, and talk to you about the writer and the writing style of the book and what I personally thought when I was reading the book itself. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is a recent book. It was bought in 2018, and I actually pre-ordered it for when it came out. It's called Poppet Magic. It's by Silver Ravenwolf, and it looks like that. This one is a really interesting spiritual book. It comes at it from a very Wiccan pagan perspective, so it has this very spiritual aspect to it. For that reason, I really enjoyed the book. It came at it from a really positive angle, talked to you about all the different ways you can use the poppets for really good energy and good spells. It gives you lots of examples throughout the book, and it is a full colour book as well, so you get beautiful imagery like that in it, where you get lots of examples of the different dolls that she has made and designed, which is really fascinating. She also gives you lots of examples as well as to the rituals and some spell workings, even some sigils she's incorporated into her magic. So there's some really good stuff in this, guys. Now, to give you an idea of the content, and I won't read you all the content because there's quite a lot of it, but I will talk to you about, the different chapters. So chapter 1 is how old is poppet magic? So she gives you a little bit of a history lesson, and that does last 5 full pages. So there's a lot of information there, guys. Chapter 2 is Poppet Basics, so intent, supplies and magical timing. Chapter 3 is basic poppet construction. So she talks to you about the stitching, the stuffing and the spell crafting and all the different things that you can make your poppets out of. So she talks to you about clay and wax and soaps, fabrics, materials. She even talks to you about dolls that already exist, so like using a Barbie doll, for example. So there's lots and lots of different things that she considers using in this and talks to you about, so very fascinating. Chapter 4 is poppet rituals, so birthing, naming, sending and deactivating rituals. So she covers everything from the start of making your doll right the way through to decommissioning and getting rid of it if you don't want to use it anymore. So that was really interesting. She also talks to you about if you have if you're handling a doll that's unfinished and what to do with it. So she does cover every angle, guys. That's another reason I've thoroughly enjoyed this book. One of the things I will say about that chapter 4, where she talks about the birthing and the naming and the sending. So the sending is giving your doll purpose so that it's got something to focus on with its energy in order to manifest what it is you want. So during the birthing and the naming, she's created quite a long-winded ritual, in my opinion. So what I ended up doing was I sat down with this book and formulated my own more simpler ritual. So rather than using this really long-winded one here, I made my own. So that's something I would definitely recommend doing, guys. But if you're happy with following what she's done in here, then by all means go for it. But I know from personal experience of making poppets that usually when you've spent enough time making them, the last thing you want to do is spend a long time doing these lengthy rituals in order to just simply get them to do what you want. There's far simpler ways. You can spell them, you can command them, you can literally name them after somebody and connect that person to them using a tag lock and then get on with what you want to do. So it is far simpler than what she made out in this as far as I'm concerned. But it's up to you guys. So chapter 5, she then talks about the working with various mediums. So here she talks about clays and stones and twigs and thorns and all sorts of different things. She talks to you about your pins. She talks to you about different ways the dolls can look. So they could look like, for example, a duck or a kitten or a dog or whatever you wanted really, and she talks to you about all the different ones that she's come across. She talks to you about paper poppets as well, and I do have a number of paper poppets that I've designed. So yeah, some really interesting information in that chapter, and I really enjoyed looking at the different ones that she was giving you examples of as well. And then in chapter 6, handling your spirit dolls, so taking care of your various permanent dolls. So this is why she talks to you about dolls that you've decided to keep, so you're not going to decommission them, they're going to be for long-term use, where to keep them and how to store them and how to look after them and respect them. So that was good as well. And then poppet formulas. So this is where you actually cast spells using your poppets, and I'll just read out the sections that she provides you with in this. So she gives you love, money, guardian angel, protection, success, divination, healing, consecration, lucky lady, good marriage, steady income, truth spell, banish nightmares or destroy evil illusions, remove pain, releasing rituals, stop gossip, reverse harm, travel protection, hexbreaker, and funeral guardian. And then in chapter 8, she talks to you about poppet patterns. So here she gives you lots of examples and patterns that you can use. She includes ones like that one, for example, which is a polar bear that she uses. So there's some good stuff in this, and then she gives you a full index at the back and ways to access the information. And one of the things I will show you that I did enjoy was she gives you these kind of printable layouts for making and designing your own poppets as well. And there's some really interesting designs that she includes. So there's some good stuff in this book, guys. I really enjoyed it. It's got a lot of content. A lot of things that I personally would never have thought to use is included. She doesn't always make her poppets look exactly like a person, so as you can see that one doesn't quite look like a person, that looks more like a goddess, that's quite traditional, and that one, that's my favourite. I love that one, I think that's great. She talks to you about collecting materials in unusual ways as well. So one of the things she tells you in the book is why not go out after it's been a big, tremendous thunderstorm where you live, and go and collect twigs and leaves and materials from that thunderstorm, because they're all charged with that energy, and incorporate them into your dolls and your magic. So that was really interesting. She also gives you a particular design and recipe for actually baking cookies that look like certain dolls or figurals, and then she teaches you how to spell them and actually gift them to people, and they can be used for all sorts of things, from gifting someone that you fancy a love cookie right the way through to a healing cookie as well. So there's all sorts of different things in this book, guys, and there's loads of ways for you to build upon that in your own spells. So I did really enjoy this book. It is definitely something that's worthy of staying in my collection, and I would probably easily score this about, I'd say a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So not quite a 10 out of 10, but not far off, guys. Definitely a really good read. I recommend it. Now, my favourite book on the subject was actually Fluke. I was searching through for more information as I'd finished all the books I had on the subject, and I had a thirst for learning more. So I started Googling and researching for more and more books on the subject, and I came across this one, and I wasn't going to buy it, but it was like £7 at the time. It had been reduced on Amazon, so I thought, why not? It's only £7. So I bought it, and I'm so glad I did. This is by far my favourite book in my collection regarding Poppet Magic. This is a brilliant, really interesting book. So it's called My Fetch, The Art and Magic of Crafting Poppets and Voodoo Dolls, and it's by Tara Luna Wolf, and it looks like that. Now, one of the things I will say is I was really disappointed to find out that she hasn't really wrote that many books, so this is probably the main one I've ever read by her, but I'm so glad I bought it, because this to me was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Everything in it is really simplistic and easy to do, and the way that she handles and talks about her poppets is really simple, guys. I will also say that if you're not liking sewing, the first book, The Poppet Magic by Silver Ravenwolf, there's an awful lot of sewing involved in that one, but in this one she doesn't use sewing, she used knot magic instead, and knot magic is something else that I really enjoy in the craft. It's again really simple. You can do really simple magic with knot magic, and hardly anyone knows you're doing it. So I would definitely say that this book, if you don't like sewing, is the bee's knees, guys. It's definitely the best book. So just give you an example of the content. We have an introduction to puppetry, the art of puppetry, choosing materials, adornments and crafting worksheets, and knot magic. Example basic love fetch. So she gives you an example of how she made a love fetch and all the materials and everything, and that's a really nice section to this book. The magic of puppetry, so awakening ritual, temple oil recipe, empowerment ritual, adornment ritual, binding spell, pin and thorn magic, binding spells, burning spells, releasing rituals, and then she gives you a section of appendices as well, which covers colours, chakras, gemstones, herbs, bird feathers and numbers, and she gives you a photo gallery of all the ones that she's made as well. One of the things I do like is all the pages are kind of this black colour, which is really cool. Just to give you an example of the love section, so it kind of looks like that step by step in all these beautiful red colours, and she shows you how to make it step by step, what it looked like, all the ingredients, so that's really interesting. That poppet there I have actually made, guys. I really enjoyed making that one, thought it looked really interesting. And again, these poppets, they look really funky when you're making them. They don't look like regular poppets, but they do look like people, and I love that about them. She also gives you these simple example chants that you can use on your poppets. So I'll read one out to you just to give you an example. So the Purification Hex Broken one, she says, I fill you with darkness, I fill you with black energy. Into this poppet, I banish all negativity. So simple, effective, rolls off the tongue, and it's something that you can say and repeat and chant while stitching and bringing to life your poppet. So really good. She gives you a kind of her version of a birthing ritual in this as well. She talks to you about using things like earrings and jewellery, all these embellishments and charms. So excellent. She also talks to you, and this is my favourite section, about pin and form magic, and that's kind of the section there. And one of the things I will say about that was she sort of teaches you that your pins are really important and that you should really respect them and incorporate them in your magic as often as you can. And she talks to you about how, you know, how magical they truly are, and I've never thought of them like that. And don't get me wrong, I don't disrespect any of my tools. They all have a sacred space and a special place in my craft room. I use a lot of these on a regular basis and incorporate a lot of them in my craft nearly all the time, to be honest. And you know, if you saw my room, all my tools are laid out on nice neat shelves where I can access them really easily, and my pins are no different. But I've never thought to consecrate and bless my pins to become magical tools, and I kind of liked that about her. And she gave me this kind of enthusiasm for taking care of my pins and doing something special with them, which I will show you in a minute what I did. But yeah, I definitely think her knowledge and information in this was much better than previous books read, and because it's so simple and easy to do, the way she lays out the information, the way she talks about her dolls, and because there's limited sewing involved in it, and it is more about incorporating not magic and spells and all the herbs and ingredients you'd need, I really enjoyed that about it. This one for me is a 10 out of 10, guys. I thought it was fantastic. So if you want to get your hands on that one, I thoroughly recommend it. So the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is the very first one I had on the subject. It doesn't talk to you about dolls themselves and how to make them and design them. This is more a spell book to use on the dolls. So obviously we all know that to make a doll you're going to need material, you're going to need some stuffing, and you're probably going to need a lot of magical items like crystals, herbs and oils, but a lot of them you have already. So this book was a way to incorporate and enchant your dolls to do or certain things, or to tag pocket to people and have an effect on them in different ways. This was more about spells. So it's called the Voodoo Doll Spellbook, the Compendium of Ancient and Contemporary Spells and Rituals, and it's by Denise Alvarado. I think I said that right. And that's what it looks like, guys. So it's got this really kind of old creepy doll on the front, and it's got some pins sticking in it, and it kind of looks like a really cool book. So to give you an idea of the content, so in the content we have Chapter 1, Pin is Mightier Than the Sword, Principles of Your Doll Magic. Chapter 2, Banishing and Uncrossing Spells. Chapter 3, Curses, Hexes and Spells for Revenge, and trust me guys, that's a very large section. It covers from page 23 all the way to page kind of 54, so that's a lot of pages on that particular subject. And then chapter 4 is Dream Dolls of Antiquity. Chapter 5, Bend Over Spells. Chapter 6, Spells for Love and Romance. And then you've got spells for binding, breakup spells, money spells, business and employment, better business spells, court case spells, spells for good luck, success and gambling, spells for health and fertility, spells for power and domination, spells for protection, counter magic and defence, and again that's quite a large section as well. Then you've got spells for self-improvement, wishing spells, Japanese voodoo spells, and then you've got some miscellaneous spells that she included as well. Now, before she jumps into the book, one of the things she does do is give you a disclaimer and a legal notice regarding the book, and I believe that's because of the massive amount of content in this that does cover, you know, some curses and hexes and revenge magic. And to give you some example of that as well, because it's not something I do practice, but there's some of you out there that I know are going to be interested in that, so I'll just read you out a couple of the things she has. So she's got spells like Black Pin Spell, Get Even Gree Doll, Hex Your Enemy Ritual, Mississippi Hex Doll, Mississippi Death Doll, 7 Pins Voodoo Spell, the Devil Doll Spell, Hoodoo You Hate Doll, Voodoo Mama's Revenge Spell, Witch Doctor's Demon Spell. So that's just some examples of the types of spells that's included in this. And I know the section you're all going to be interested in is maybe using them for love, because that's the most common way these are used. So you've got spells, for example, let's see, Gree Doll for a successful marriage, Love Doll Spell, Love Me Voodoo Spell, Love Talisman Spell, 7 Pins Love Spell, Unite 2 Lovers, Spice Up Your Sex Life Love Doll Spell. So again, some really interesting techniques there. And again, another section I think you all might be interested in is the protection one. So I'll just give you a couple of examples from that. So you've got a spell to stop evil, confuse an enemy spell, neutralize an enemy attack, voodoo poppet spell to stop gossip, spell to silence gossip, shut your mouth poppet spell, a doll to trip up thieves, let's see, paper voodoo doll protection spell. So there's a number of different techniques in this book, all of which were thoroughly interesting, and you know, I did enjoy reading them. Negatives with this book for me is that I do feel like what she's done, because she hasn't wrote nearly one half of what's in here, what she's done is she's incorporated a large amount of spells and rituals and, you know, incantations that she's found and methods, and she's lumbered them all in this book. So a lot of these aren't actually hers. Some of them I believe are, but some of them are not. I will definitely say that there is some stuff in this book that I felt was questionable and not stuff that I felt personally that I would use on my path. But she does give you enough information to see the format and the basis for a spell in order to build upon that and design your own. And as I am an eclectic witch, that's something I do a lot of in my other books. So for that reason, I'm probably going to score this book at about a 6 out of 10. It is worthy enough to keep in a collection. It does have a lot of information, so it is worth having a look at, guys. For me personally, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, which is why I've scored it so low. I just think there's better books on the market, if I'm honest, guys. So I'm going to give you a couple of sneak peeks at some of my poppets in my personal collection. One of the first ones I'm going to show you is this one. So this cute little guy is a binding poppet. So this is giving you an example of some of the materials you can use. So obviously this is a really old kind of material, and it's just been sewn up and X's have been put on to represent eyes, and it's been filled with herbs for binding purposes. Now the last time that I used this, if I'm honest guys, he was bound up with black ribbon, he was covered in some herbs and some glass, and he was pinned to high heaven, oiled up, and he was shoved in the freezer. So it tells you that I really wanted somebody to leave me alone and back off, so that's what I did with that. And then come the new year, decided, you know what, let's give him a chance to fresh start, new year and all that. So I took him out and didn't reverse all the energies. What I did was I put a stop to it so it wouldn't continue any further, and then I cleansed him off and kept him where he could be charged, and then I popped him back in my collection. So one of the things mentioned in the books is you don't necessarily have to destroy your poppets when you're done with them. You can cleanse them off and reuse them, and as this is a sealed one, so I don't open him up, I didn't want to get rid of him. I wanted to keep reusing him over and over, which is why I've kept him. So the next poppet I'm going to show you as an example of another different type is this one. So this is my angel poppet. I actually have 2 of these. One of them's much bigger, and as you can see, it's got some pins in it already. So these are my pearl pins. Pearls are really good to represent angelic energies and connect to the element of water, since pearls are meant to come from the ocean and obviously from oysters, is it? I think it's oysters. I might be wrong, but sorry guys, feel free to correct me. But yeah, so because they come from the ocean, they connect with the ocean. This is really good to use for incorporating the power of the oceans and the healing waters, dealing with emotions and trauma. And of course pins like this, because they're quite big, what I do is I have a collection of oils that connect to angel magic, and I tend to dip them in, and then obviously I can place them inside the poppet, pinning things to it, and depending on what I want to pin to it depends on how I magically charge and activate the items. So again, you can pin things like crystals and jewels to this, personal items from a person who it's supposed to represent. You can pin an image of the person onto here, or the name of the person perhaps. You can pin a piece of clothing. I have had a wedding ring pinned to this before now to heal a marriage from loss. So there's all sorts of different things that you can incorporate on this. And again, I use this for healing, so this is a positive poppet. I never use it for anything baneful or nasty. This is always for something really good. Just as a disclaimer, guys, I don't tend to go around using poppets for evil or baneful purposes. A lot of the poppets I have are usually for positive. So even though I said I shoved this in the freezer, it was about freezing and stopping somebody in their tracks so they couldn't do any further harm to me. And the binding it up was about binding their energy to them so they couldn't use that energy to reach out and hurt anybody anymore. So it wasn't baneful, it was more about protecting me and protecting others away from that person. So just examples of different ways you can use your poppets. Other ways I've used my poppets has been for love reasons, so things like self-love. So I've worked on myself using a poppet and made an image of myself. I have also done universal ordering where I've used a paper poppet and I've wrote down, you know, the kind of ideal partner that I desire, and then I've burned it and released all that energy out. You can actually see a version of that spell on my free love spell video if you want to have a look, guys. So there's all sorts of different ways to use poppets. One of my favourite techniques, which is something I do a lot of holistic long distance healing, as I am a spiritual professional healer, and poppets is an excellent way to remove kind of negativity or painful energies from a person and put them into the poppet. So I have transferred symptoms and illnesses and reduced the effects of a long-term disease on a client before by moving it into the poppet, which has given their body a chance to heal and recover and recuperate so that they feel 10 times better than they have done in a while. So there's all sorts of ways to use poppets. It doesn't have to be baneful or negative, guys. But if your path is something a bit more baneful, then by all means, you know, each to their own. I'm not trying to dictate to anybody here. You do what you like on your path and you do what you feel you need to. But for those of you out there that are interested in poppets and worried that it's negative, as I say, it depends how you use your poppet and what you want to use it for. Get creative, do your research, and figure out lots of different ways that you can incorporate them in your craft. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was about gaining a newfound perspective for all my pins. So one of the things I did was this. So this is the way that I like to display and use my pins. So as you can see, I have an awful lot of pins on here and they're all very beautiful. They're all pins that I use on a regular basis, and these are my main power pins, if I'm honest, guys. So these skull ones here at the back, so these are all ones that I made myself, so I didn't buy them or anything, and you can make these really easily. These little skulls here, you can type in skull beads on eBay, I think it was, and I think for a pack, like a big pack of like 20 or 30 of them, I paid like a few quid, and they arrive in all sorts of different colours, as you can see. And then buy yourself some pins for dressmaking, and you simply super glue the skulls onto them, and that's all I did. Nice and easy. And then I blessed them, I consecrated them, and then some of them I even named, but I'm not going to tell you what the names are because obviously it's sacred to me and my path. These ones over here I didn't make, I bought. So these ones I found online. I thought they were quite beautiful because they look like flowers, and I use these for a lot of positive magic. So that's that type. And then this one was a hat pin for a lady's old-fashioned hat, and it was the evil eye, and I thought it was fantastic. It was a little bit more pricey than I would like. I think I paid about 8 quid for it, but I just couldn't leave it, guys. I thought it was fantastic and excellent for protection magic. The first book I read, as I say, was Silver Ravenwolf's book in 2018, and because of that I went looking for pins for witchcraft and Wicca, and I came across these. So these were an excellent choice to incorporate more witchy energies into your poppets. And then of course, as tradition, I went and got myself a proper bone needle. So this is actually made out of proper bone, guys, and I use this for all sorts of things. I'm not going to tell you exactly what, but when you read your books and do your research, you'll figure out if it's something you want in your collection or if it's something you'll use. And then if you're interested in the stand and wondering what this is a proper hat pin stand. Now, it wasn't cheap, guys, I'll be honest. I think I paid like 28 quid for it, and then shipping on top from eBay, and there aren't that many of them because they're quite old-fashioned, but it was a way to display my pins. I could have this on my altar when I was working with my dolls, and I could obviously access my pins, the different ones that I needed and wanted to work with. So this is something I felt was quite beautiful to display my pins, but you don't have to do that. You could go to a sewing shop, somewhere like Abercam, for example. Abercam is a British company. It sells lots of big materials and all sorts of sewing equipment, and you can buy yourself those little fluffy pillows or the wrist ones and put all your pins in that. And then of course when you're working your magic, you've got them to close hands and you can just pull them out and work with them. So it's up to you, guys. You do what you do. You do you, basically, is what I'm saying. Come up with your own methods, but this was quite something I enjoyed, and I like displaying things, so it gave me a chance to be able to display my pins in a place of pride in my craft room. So that's why I did that, guys. So that's all I've got for you in this video, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you liked it, please give me that thumbs up and click that bell button, because YouTube is awful at telling you when my videos come out. And for those of you who are new to watching this, my videos come out every single Friday. I cover a variety of different subjects, and I do recommend watching some of my other videos to see if there's anything of interest for you as well. And welcome if you are new. Thank you very much for watching my video. I do appreciate it. If you don't already know, all the information in the description includes links to my various different pages, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course I have a Patreon account as well. So if you'd like to support my humble channel, you can do that through Patreon. And if you want to book my services for mentoring and witchcraft, or for doing any spells or rituals on your behalf, then you can do that through Patreon, and it's much cheaper for you guys than it is for anyone else out there. If you book through all my other services, it's full price, so it's worth going on Patreon instead, guys. So thank you very much. I do appreciate all your support. As always, take care of each other, be good to each other. I'll see you very soon. Blessed be.